After the match, Vanni Sartini again, obviously elated, not so happy that he started talking about his preferred economic and social theories and how beautiful his wife is and that type of monologue. There was almost a tongue-in-cheek anger from Vanni Sartini after the match. He had the following to say at the podium, and it was a pretty pointed bit of comments. This is from Joshua Ray, who was with the press conference. Sartini said, "We showed we are the best Canadian team, and we have been for the past 2 to 3 years. I don't know why we have to remind everyone. Maybe we need to remind the Canadian media and One Soccer." Interesting from Vanni Sartini. Gareth, what do you have to say to the Caps?
Well, as always, frequently on this program, people just don't get things right. And people deny factual information, things that have been said and done. And oftentimes I use a phrase and it never happens, but this time it's going to work.
Today we're ready.
Roll the tape.
I am in. I am in. All in. I like this side.
I think the Whitecaps, because I think the West is significantly weaker than the Eastern Conference. I think the Whitecaps have the ability to be a top 3 team in the Western Conference and go on and try to do something here.
I'm feeling good. I think if the Vancouver Whitecaps were a coach, they would be Vanni Sartini, because they're entertaining all the time and maybe a little bit underestimated in this league as well.
Top 3 in the Western Conference and the potential for a very deep playoff run. I mean, playoff time, we can't predict playoffs. MLS is just, who knows what's going to happen October, November. I'm talking about now. This team is one to be reckoned with, Andy Petrillo. Week in, week out on this program, we are the hype. We are Flava Flav to the Vancouver Whitecaps. You know, that's what we are. We put them out there. We rave about Vanni. We tell the world how great they are. Meanwhile, these arguments are just starting to happen in Major League Soccer. So when he says Canadian media, it's only us he's referring to because we're the only broadcasters that go out and talk about his team every day. And not every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows and unicorns. The fact remains, when it comes to the Whitecaps as a club and success, they haven't had a whole lot. And going into this season, yes, there's no question that they're better than the 2 teams and other MLS teams in Canada who had brand new coaches, because both of them have had poor seasons last year. The Whitecaps were top, but the Whitecaps, by the way, only had 48 points last season. Guess 2 seasons ago, CF Montreal put up 65. Vancouver wasn't better than Montreal 2 seasons ago. In fact, the Whitecaps haven't had over 50 points of the season since 2017. So maybe the rest of the league and most other casuals are just catching on that this Whitecaps team is good, because previously they stunk. They haven't done anything. And we can do things at the same time. We can kind of rave about the Whitecaps and discuss them as a legitimate MLS Cup contender, which we do. But we can say Toronto FC is a big club with a lot of money that have made some bad decisions lately. And CF Montreal, a recent vintage, has been a really good team. So there you go. There's some competition. Now all eyes are on Sartini and the Whitecaps heading into the Can Champs.
The 2 to 3 years thing, I think, is valid to say. Maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, given Montreal were much better in 2022, although Vancouver did win the Canadian Championship that year. I personally did not take this as much of like a shot. I took it as a compliment. I think firstly, like, the quote as it was transcribed, I don't think that's exactly what he said. He was more saying that, like, you know, they need to remind whoever that they're the best team in Canada. But then he seemed to be saying that he was hoping that the Canadian media, and One Soccer was the first one that came to mind, which again I take as flattering. He was hoping we would tell that story. So I didn't take this as an insult. I think Vanni just wants to make sure everyone knows who the top team in Canada is, and as Wheels has illustrated, we have been saying that.
I just hope that, I'll be quick, I just hope that it's the 3-peat. Like, bigging them up. I don't big up teams in the Can Champ at all. This is the time, though, to really be the king of the hill and look at everyone else and say, you peasants, we have this. So I hope they go into this Can Champ, blow everyone out of the water, and then they can really be beating their chest like the big dogs. But did
you see Vanni post game? Like, Herdman will use this, I guarantee, when he's going 1, 2.
He always does this.
Four goals. No, but this is stuff that, like, John Herdman uses. So I don't know if Toronto FC have the dogs to run with them, but, like, I love the swagger. I love that someone's going to puff out your chest. And no, we're the kings of the Canadian castle right now. So here we go. Love it.
Now, we had extended an open invitation. For the record, every gaffer in Canadian football is always welcome to join this program. But specifically, we had invited Vanni Sartini on today to discuss the win and the quote. Unfortunately, his schedule did not allow him to be here, but he gave us a date on Thursday. It's a good time to tell you that the One Soccer Today format is shifting to 2-show week as the CPL season is right around. So Thursday, put it in your calendars. Vanni Sartini on the program. We cannot wait to have him back on the air with us. It was TFC. It was Vancouver Whitecaps. It was a huge game with Canadian connotations in it. We previewed it on Friday in our 20-bet top picks and mentioned some of the recent history of Toronto going to BC Place and really struggling against the Whitecaps. 4-0 the final score. Vancouver over the moon with the result, Gareth. I'm curious, in a result like this, specifically in this game, does the win tell us more about Vancouver right now, or does the loss tell us more about TFC right now?
Well, we'll discuss the Vancouver Whitecaps momentarily because we have been shining a whole lot of light on this team and how well they've been put together. But this result tells me more about where Toronto FC is right now. Valiantly fought, did really well coming together, fresh off a new season under new management. But simply put, you're asking too much of too few. And there's just not enough quality players. And there's certainly no depth in this side to make them a competitive outfit when you face teams like the Vancouver Whitecaps, who are clearly in the upper echelon of teams in Major League Soccer. You take Lorenzo Insigne out of this team, like you lose that little bit of magic. They go behind in games. There's not enough goal scoring prowess to go out and get one back. It was easy for the Vancouver Whitecaps, but that's because this is the state of Toronto FC. So I think it's more indicative of where TFC are right now, especially with no Insigne, especially with no Larea, a team that won 4 games all of last season. I mean, the start was very well organized. They're fresh. They can maybe do something, be at the very least competitive in those early weeks, but just going to get more and more difficult as the season goes on.
Oliver Platt.
I'm going to go the other way. I take more out of this from a Whitecaps perspective than TFC, because I think they have turned what were some promising but incomplete performances to start this season into a full 90-minute dominant win at home at BC Place. And there's a couple of things in particular that I really like about this side right now, or I think are points of progress from last season that they needed to take. One is just the variety of goal scorers. You know, there was a big reliance on Brian White and Ryan Gold to score and create goals last season. This year, they have 14 goals scored. That's second only to Miami, who have played 2 games more. But maybe even more importantly, they've had 9 different goal scorers so far this season, which is the most in Major League Soccer. So I think that's a great sign for them going forwards, and a credit to Vanni Sartini balancing the attacking side of his team. The second one is that I think there needed to be some real internal improvement here, as much as everyone gets caught up in new signings. There were players in this group who maybe joined last season, particularly international players, who needed to have stronger second seasons, show they'd settled, show they can be a key part of this team. And I thought of the weekend against TFC, Mateus Laborda and Alessandro Schoff were 2 of the best players on the pitch. They look like players who have taken big strides forwards from their debut seasons in MLS. So those 2 things for me are really good signs that this Vancouver team has taken a step from last year.
But that's not the gauge. That's not the weekend. Like when you're playing at home, if you look at the starting 11s for these 2 teams, Ollie, like
but the game is the top of the league with the game in hand.
Does one Toronto? No, but we're talking about what that match against Toronto FC. Their start to the season has been very bright. We've documented that. But would a Toronto FC player, just one of them of the starting 11, make it into a Vancouver Whitecaps starting 11? That team that started on the weekend. Like you might take all 11. You can make the argument you take all 11 Whitecap starters from last weekend over the Toronto FC players. So what do we expect?
Yeah, they're a well-oiled machine right now, but like that, there's no question about that, Wheels. And I feel like it is more telling about Toronto FC, like the state that they're in. But this is also there's something to say about Vancouver doing better at the start of this season than they did last year and improving. Like when I put in my notes, like 3 goals against Dallas, 3 goals against Portland, 4 against Toronto. Yeah, they're beating up on teams, but this was also a team last year, and we talk about XGs that were punching and scoring goals, maybe 2, but not finishing games. Like now it looks like they feel dominant and they're stepping up and can really be I won't say contenders in the West, but definitely making playoffs and definitely making a run. So it's good to see just a team being outright dominant from the start and not really taking a long time to warm up. And my boy Fafa is doing bits as well.